Hi, I'm Dave, and I'm here with Jake Ellinger on the I'm Glad I Heard That podcast. And if you like what you hear today, I want to encourage you to listen to the long-form conversation anywhere that you can find podcasts on all the different platforms. Just look for I'm Glad I Heard That. And today what we're going to be talking about, it follows up a little bit of what the series that Tony's done on YouTube about bringing Jesus into every relationship. And Jake, it has a great story to share with us about what God's been doing in his life, but more importantly, what God's been doing in his life through his workplace. And to get us started, first of all, Jake, let me say welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, let's do, since we're going to spend a lot of time talking about what you do as a vocation, what you do as a career, kind of share with us what do you do for a living and how long have you been doing that?
I'm a finished carpenter by trade.
Okay.
I've been doing this over 25 years. Does not matter any aspect. It can be commercial, residential, rough, finish, displays, museum, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So one of the things is, how did you and Debbie end up here at Faith?
Well, we had members that were here that lived across the street from us at the time.
Okay.
And they invited us out for ice cream one night, and they said, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're just going to make a little stop at this place," and it was here on a Saturday night service. So yeah, nice little bait and switch. And our oldest, Madison, at the time was about 3, and I remember very distinctly the music, and I just saw my little girl putting her hands up like everybody else was, and I said, "This is the place."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So they did a bait and switch and it worked.
It did.
We don't encourage that, but if it happens, well, worse things have happened, I'm sure. So great. And then when did you guys decide you wanted to get connected more here, and what did that look like? Did you do like a membership class, or did you just start with serving, or how did this all shake out for you?
Yeah, we were attending, and then Deb and I were like, this is really what we really like to do. And funny story that the day that Debbie was taking the membership course here was October 13th, 2001. And how I remember that day is the day that I broke my neck.
How'd you break your neck?
This was the very first time Debbie entrusted me home alone with the 2 girls. So next door neighbor was having a birthday party for their 6-year-old, and they had an inflatable bounce house. And I was in there with the kids, having just a great time, showing them what a great gymnast used to be, and then bouncing around. Someone got close and kind of steals your balance. When I landed on my head, I felt my chin touch me down here, and I heard a large pop. And everything just kind of went fuzzy. And I'm like, oh crap, this is not good. So I said, I'll just lay down for a little bit. Long story short, I knew that I had earned my trip, a trip to the hospital. Our second daughter, Lainey, was not a very easy baby at the time, so I had to take her with me. Yeah, and at no circumstances, I told my neighbor, do not call Debbie, I got this. So I had Lainey at the hospital with me, and x-rays, and because I knew I really wanted to get home because we had a wedding to go to that night. Debbie was pregnant with Peyton, so she bought a new dress, and I didn't want to disappoint her. So a little bit further into the evening, we learned that, hey, you're spending the night. Doctor said, okay, I'm going to kick you loose. Hey, what do you do? I'm a carpenter. Oh, well, no, I think I'm going to do surgery. So that was kind of a weird little switch. This nurse just come along. I never saw her before. She said, hey, I think you ought to get a second opinion.
Okay.
So I left AMA, against medical advice. I knew a couple people in the medical field. My brother sang a barbershop quartet with the chief cardiologist at Henry Ford. He looked at the film and said, dude, it's broke, you need surgery. It's a double fracture, C6 with a herniated disc between 5 and 6. That's basically the same break that Christopher Reeves had. Mm-hmm. The wedding I was supposed to go to, friends of ours, she was a doctor as well. I gave it to her colleagues. They said, yeah, you need surgery. This is not good. So Deb and I sat, and that was like on a Saturday, and we started looking into what our options were as far as taking time off work, what we could do financially, and with annuity and stuff with my pension and within the union, I just couldn't do it. We couldn't do it. So on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I gave my dad a call, and I said, "Hey, we need to get the boys together, and we need to pray." What I mean by that, he has these guys in his life that I call prayer warriors. That as a young man, I remember at 16, these guys would get together and they would have prayer meetings, and I just distinctly remember how important that was. So when I called him up, and he says, "Well, I'll call them up, see if they're up for this." So I got a call back on a Thursday, and he said, "Yeah, we're good to go. Sunday.
We're all available."
Yep. So be at my place." I said, "Okay." So I did a 3-day fast, the easiest fast I ever had.
Okay.
And at that time, I was taking 4 Vicodin 800 ESs and 3 ibuprofens at a time just to deal with pain. That was every 4 hours. I would wake up an hour before I had to go to work, take my meds, so when I woke up, I wasn't hurting. So fast forward, that Sunday morning, I took no meds. And those 3 days, I was reading out of Matthew where it says, Jesus says to the paralytic, "Pick up your mat and sin no more." Mm-hmm. So that just really, really stuck. So those 3 days go by, I go out and I meet with my dad, Brian and Stan, his two prayer warrior friends, good friends. And we go out in my dad's property, and we had 4 lawn chairs. We sat out in the field, and it was my dad across from me. Stan was to my right, Brian was to my left. And we just started, talking, hey, what happened? Brian studied the spine in college, so he knew how critical, this area was. And the whole time that we were just talking there, the back of my neck just starts getting really warm. And then we just started popcorn praying, right? So we're, he prays, I pray. It's just kind of, whatever you just kind of feel. This is why it's, so important that prayer is so important in everyday life. So this whole time that we're praying, the back of my neck's getting hotter and hotter. So now I could not move my head more than 10 to 15 degrees to the right. It was impossible. Now to the left was fine. And the more we prayed, and it was just getting really uncomfortable. And then after we're done praying, about 45 minutes or so, it doesn't really, it seems like a long time, but when you're just, say, in the zone and you're just praying, time is not an issue. So, and then when we were done praying, they stood up and they had some olive oil, and they were gonna, Brian and Stan came behind, and they were gonna take some oil and anoint my neck. Yeah. My dad was in front, hands in my head. And after they're praying and they were put the oil on, we prayed again, and we all sat down, and they said, "Well, how do you feel?" And I was like, "Well," I kind of turned my head a little further, and I go, "That's a lot farther I can go than I could before." But that's not the beauty part of the story. So 2 weeks later, I have a follow-up appointment, and I go to the doctor, x-rays, MRIs. He looks them all up. He goes, "Hey, man, everything looks great. Where'd you have your surgery?" So I said, I gave him the cliff notes of the story I just told you.
Yeah.
And his response was, and quote, "Well, I'm not saying that miracles don't happen, but I think you should still get the surgery."
Yeah.
"See you, doc."
Right.
I walked out. So that story has been impactful to say how important prayer is. So especially in my field, I'm in the trades. So you deal with a lot of rough guys.
Yeah.
You deal with, the guys who, most of them didn't finish high school. Most of them did not go to college. Some of them did. Mm-hmm. And you deal with guys who, what you would say, or most society would say, those are men, right?
Okay.
These are
Yeah.
the rough and tumbly,
Alpha male.
alpha male. Yep. Not going to show you my feelings. I'm not going to show you who I am. I'm going to show you by what I say, rather than really what's in here. Mm-hmm. So that has always stuck with me, and knowing that, why me? There's got to be this purpose. And in my field, it goes from job site to job site to job site. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's just the way it goes. Yep. I never had the luxury, and I've always wanted that job. Hey, that someone says, I've been there for 30 years. Mm-hmm. I've been here for X amount. Yep. And I've always wanted that because I wanted to get away from the temptations that I have in the field. Mm-hmm. And so I've always wanted to say, well, you know what? I struggle as a Christian because, well, look who I'm around with, right? I mean, and I used that excuse. I could be a better Christian if.
Yep.
And
right.
I was if I had a better surroundings, then I could be a better Christian. Mm-hmm. And that's something that Tom alluded to in the book later in the chapter, and it's like that part right there really hit me between the eyes and really pierced me, because it was like, I thought for years, what is he training me for? What is he pruning me to do? I got this job, I got that job, there's always a layoff, there's always another job hunt, and I just always felt horrible and said, God's pruning me for something. He's just training me for something. Didn't know what, but there was always something out there that I felt that I was always being trained for.
A couple things that you said that were just want to pause on for a minute, because we all have things that we blame for not following God the way we want to.
Exactly.
Right. We all have it.
It's not fitting in my wheelhouse. I can't do this unless I have that.
And excuses, blame, whatever it is, for you, you're saying it's this specific environment. In this environment, these things are present that are temptations for me, mm-hmm. right? So if I'm out of that environment, those temptations are going to be dealt with. And sometimes I think that's a real thing. Not real, but like for sometimes you do have to get out of it, right? There's certain things you got to flee from, right? Yep. But it sounds like for this one, God's asking you to learn how to work in that tension, mm-hmm. right? And that's a real thing, that when there are things that are hard for you to navigate and to do and to stay away from, and yet they're around you all the different times. Also, every time you change a crew, part of it is like you got to get to know each other.
Yep.
And there's a couple of paths to getting to know each other, especially in an alpha male trades world, right?
Yep.
It's the bar, it's let's smoke one down, let's do whatever, and then after that, and it's like, because when you know the guys, it's easier to get the job done, mm-hmm. right? Because now there's some trust.
It's all about relationships.
Jake's one of us, and blah blah, and he's good, and all that stuff, and so it makes the work easier in some ways, but in some of those easy steps, you got to compromise. You're making a choice to compromise your belief and your identity as a follower of God, right? And so it's like, so all that's kind of like just playing out for me. So now you want this job, a specific job that will, in your mind, resolve all of these tensions, mm-hmm. right? And then we'll be good, right?
Right. Yeah. And those job sites are real, because I've built airports, I've built arenas, and you have life challenging jobs. I mean, you are full harnessed up, 100% tie off. You got to trust these men, they have to trust you. So that relationship, is you have to get through that really, really quick, and you got to be able to read that person and say, can I work with them? Can I work with them? How can I work with them? Yep. Find that common denominator really quick.
Yeah, can I actually trust them? Yeah, and so not an easy thing to navigate. And I think one of the things, when my heart got excited when you and I were talking about this, one of the things that you said was kind of this turning point. And your job didn't change, the trade didn't change, your skill set didn't change, but God changed your perspective. And that's where this book came in. So kind of walk us through, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this book. It's called Marketplace Missionaries. And I'm already halfway through it. I just started it the last week, and this is an incredible read. A lot of great different pieces of information, which we'll talk about here. But so you read this book, and let's start with what did it change how did it change your perspective?
Well, the second half of that title is Marketplace Missionaries. Where is your coworker going to spend eternity? That's the one, and that's the other half of that. Not just, the mission field is not here in these four walls. The mission field is outside these four walls. When we leave here, that is our mission field. Where we work, and that is, Tom believes in the marketplace. The marketplace is where we meet and interchange and talk to people. So the marketplace is where we are out and about. So for me, it's my job site, but it's also more than that. Not just my job site, but you also have to realize you go out to dinner. You go to the store. And I wait for those. That's what I like to call I got to go meet up with somebody. Well, whoever God has me meet up with, right?
Okay.
I met a guy at Kroger parking lot, and we just started talking, and within 5 minutes we were praying. He's a believer, and it's just that simple. We go out, my wife and I will go out to dinner, and when they bring you your food, this is a great thing. When they bring you your food, you say, hey, you know what? We're about ready to pray. Is there anything we can pray for you about? Anything we can bring to the table for?
I've heard of people doing this.
And it's just so easy. We've had one person, and all these times that we've done this, we have one person say no.
Okay.
So what that means is you're getting double. Sure, we'll pray for you. No, we got you. You're going to get double. So it's more than just the marketplace, but it's everything. Now, for me, the company I'm currently with, I was hired under, this title to do finished carpentry. Okay, for a year and a half, I was doing commercial, rough. In the winter, it was just everything not what I thought I signed up for. And my work was good, but my attitude was horrible. My heart was black. It just I didn't understand it. There's just, why am I here, right? I was hired to do this. My title says this. Started to go back to your identity. Who is my identity? My identity in a title? Is my identity in a position? But it's not. And so I wasn't being a great employee. I was just being an employee. Just go in, punch a clock, and leave. I didn't care. I didn't understand it. And when I started nipping through this book and started getting into the latter chapters of this, and it started to say, hey, the Holy Spirit just really kind of pierced me, saying, you know what, you're right where you need to be. You understand that you need to be the light for these guys. I was like, I'm thinking, I don't want to be a light for these guys. It's like, that's not me, right? I mean, I'm good with kids. I like, have a good time. But one of the things that was very, very important that Tom discusses in the book is that you have to be excellent at what you do in order for your outreach to be effective. And you have to be spiritually attractive, right? There was something that was attractive for Kristen for you to say, wow, right? That's the same thing with me, with my wife, Debbie. There is no difference for us as Christians. We have to be spiritually attractive, right?
Okay.
So we have to be something that says someone like, there's something different about, them. I had a job site, right? At the same job site, when I finished this book, I gave a little thumbs up on the last page, and I took a picture and I sent it to Tom, saying, loved it, man.
Yep.
And I just really went to town on this. Now, I had 3 atheists on this job site, 3 different atheists. And I was like, all right, let's put this to task. Let's see what we got here. So, and I learned that, there's 3 of them there, and one of them was, he didn't like church because he went to his grandma's church and they had to go down with all the rest of the kids, and listen to this story, and then all they had was this crappy snack at the end of the story.
Okay.
It wasn't much fun for them. All right, I get it. Right? That's well, it's not like that now, but okay, I get it. Another guy, he just thought, well, God is, everywhere, man. This plant is God. I'm God. The air is God. The bird is God.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. And then I had another one. It was just the angry atheist, right? Political discussion. He's just way this way, and so they do just wanted. It was just everything was angry, and we start talking about something. You get to see this face start to, change and just get really mad. So all right, this is gonna be an interesting one. That's it, right? So I would just talk to the guy, and say, hey man, love your work, man, looks good, and just love him because he did good work. And it wasn't fake; it was genuine.
Yep.
He was a skilled guy, and I would always look for that common denominator. What could we share? Hey, dude, I like that tool. Did you got a set of those VIX bits yet? Yeah. Which ones you get? Find it.
Okay.
Find that common denominator. You got to build relationships. It's all about relationships. Everything that we do in life is about relationships. Because if you don't have that, how are you going to have that conversation?
I think this is one of the things that the church nowadays, I hope we get better at, but there was a period of time, maybe 60s, 70s, there was the Kennedy method, which is this idea of you were to die tonight, do you know where you'd spend eternity? Which is it's a really good question, right? But it was kind of like this, you would knock on a door and you would ask that to a person you've never met before. Well, nowadays, people have just gotten, I think, a lot more honest, and if they don't know who you are and you're getting in their personal life, they're like, goodbye.
Right.
There is no interest in that, And so, what I'm, compelled by as reading this book was this idea of like, one of the things when he talks about how do you actually, do this. I'm like, okay, let's see what he says, right? Because we're gonna have this complicated 8-point strategy with this method and so forth. That those things can tend to get manipulated pretty easy. This is what he says on page 20 of the book. As I prayed about the best way to conduct a workplace ministry, and again, we're starting with prayer here, right? Mm-hmm. I felt that God revealed to me that I was to love my neighbor as myself. And this is what he said. Be kind, care about those I work with, and build relationships with them. Be kind, care about people, and try to build a relationship with them. I believe he would open doors for conversations and take care of the rest. And when I read that, what I absolutely loved about this idea is I'm a big fan of being human, right? Of like being a normal person. Mm-hmm. And so this is normal. And that God is going to handle that. All I have to do is just take care of it, love my neighbor as myself by being kind and caring for those people I work with. And with guys, I think we miss this a lot. Typically, we really care about our careers. We care about our work. There's a pride element to it. And when you stopped and you say to that guy, "Hey, you really did it. That's great there. How'd you set that corner so it laid out that way, right?" Like whatever it is, and let the guy start talking. It's like, now you're showing interest in them. You're patting them on the back on something that they've worked very hard to develop that skill. How did that change the relationship with the angry guy?
The angry guy, his name was Josh, and I don't know his last name. That's irrelevant. But I've always would have a conversation with him, and I'd throw a little something in here, say, "Hey man, God's giving me a good day." That's nothing. You'd give a little throwback. But there was one day we were working down the hall from each other, and it was just him and I, a good 30 feet apart or so. So we've had some minor discussion. He was clearly here and did not want to go any further. So I just walked up to him one day, and he was up on a ladder. I said, "Hey," I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "What what happens when we die? And
So you went for the jugular.
And I didn't even know until this Kennedy method,
Right.
until right now. But he said, I don't know. I said, okay. And I walked away and went back to my workplace. Leave him hungry, right? You don't want to give him everything. Just
Right, yeah. If he comes down that ladder and asks, then
Yeah.
maybe we'll have a conversation.
Not 15 minutes later, he's walking by me. And he goes, well, I was raised Lutheran, And he starts walking away. I go, hey, which one? What do you mean?
There's a couple flavors.
Yeah.
Right.
So I kind of rattled it off. And he goes, well, what's the difference? I go, okay, put this in most simplistic form.
I know. Like, how can I put
Okay,
it?
robe not fun, non-robe fun,
Yeah, like, all right. So that's where you drew your line. Okay.
So I kind of, seeing where he's at. And one of the things he says, one thing about all you Christians, and he goes, you're all effing delusional. And I go, So I stepped into him a little bit further. And I said, well, one thing I've learned about, atheists is that they've all been hurt. They've all been abandoned, abused, left out. Which one was it for you? And he got mad, walked away. What do you do?
And that's when we talk about leaving it up to God, it's like, what does Paul say? This person waters, sows, waters, plants, like all these things, and then someone gets to experience the harvest. And, and this idea that God is working in all those conversations. And so for you now, as you're going to a job that, a year and a half ago you weren't thrilled about, kind of dead end, not what you want, I'm just going to grind it out. And now that your attitude's changed, what is it like going to work every day?
I love it. Not that I like going to work, but I always look for that appointment, look for that, I got to go meet up with somebody.
Now, what I appreciate about what Tom says here is basically, and there needs to be help, because I think like once we start thinking spiritually about people, we freeze up and we forget that we just need to generally be normal humans to them. One guy explained, he goes, your neighbor comes over to borrow the lawnmower, and you don't have to talk to him about, do you know where you're going to spend eternity and all these, you don't have to ask him all these spiritual questions. Just give the dude your lawnmower, right? And so in this, he talks about, loving my neighbor as myself. He talks about, being kind to that person and caring about them, okay? So part one of the equation is that. And that's how you build a relationship so that you get street cred. But on the same hand, sometimes God's asking you and I to be the one to take that conversation into the realm of eternity, to have that. That's not every time. That's not every person you meet. But again, this is why this is art, and this is relying on the Holy Spirit. So, like, for you, Jake, how do you take it to the point of talking about eternity? And if so, what's this like?
Yeah, you definitely will get into these conversations, which is the real meat and potatoes, is really why you're there. We kind of cover some generalizations. And oddly enough, something that had really sharpened my sword with learning the Bible is in children's ministry. And you tell the kids all these stories. Well, you had to read these stories, and now you got to explain it to a younger generation. And that really honed and gave me a lot of practice for over the years. Going through children's ministry and learning this, it just made it so much easier to talk to people on the job site. Well, I've already done it every Sunday for how many years? What's the difference here? There is no difference. But you do have to discern what conversation you just go in. You have to read that person, read where they're at, if they're receptive to it, if they're not receptive to it. If they're not, you just kind of back off and just kind of throw some crumbs out there. If they're a sponge, dive in with both feet, because you don't know where they're at. You don't know the tipping point of where they're at in their life. I've had guys just break down. I've never heard this before. And people say, well, you're just here to show me my faults. So I said, well, that's John 3:17, dude.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean, John? You mean John 3:16?
No. Let's talk about the next verse.
The next one is Jesus did not come here to condemn. He came here to save.
Yeah.
So,
right.
You're not here to change people. We're here to walk with you. And once they see that, it's like, look, dude, we're going toward the same place here. And, you're my brother. You're not that heavy. I'll help you. Let's go. Once they understand that, and that's that relationship again. You've got to build that quick.
Yep.
And just jump in with both feet.
Well, and this is something as followers of Jesus we just got to learn how to navigate, because obviously you want to be a good person, you want to love people well, but that's only part of it. And the frustration side that I have is that telling others about Jesus, there's a lot of ways it's gotten screwed up. But the guy who walks around the office and scowls at everyone, but he hosts a lunchtime Bible study. And one time he asked you to go to that lunchtime Bible study, and you didn't go, and that guy's never talked to you ever since that day, right? It's like, that's the side of this where it gets into the negative realm. But because of that, I can overcompensate and say, well, I'm just going to be a really nice guy to everyone then. But on the same hand, are you ever going to invite someone into a Bible study? You're going to ever invite them into that conversation that needs to be had? I remember one time years ago, real friendship, and I think I handled it well, which rarely do I in these conversations, but God laid some things on my heart. And I told the guy, I said, I want to talk to you about a faith life. And I don't want this to ruin the friendship afterwards. Mm-hmm. But on the same hand, and I also don't know what you believe, so you might believe some of these things. And so I don't want to make the assumption that you don't, because I think that's been a screw up. People, handle it that way. And I go, so can I just, before I tell you a couple things, I just want to ask you some things. And then I was able to learn, and then I wanted to talk to him about sin separating me from God, mm-hmm. Jesus coming to bridge that gap, and because of that, the promise of John 3:16. That I'll have eternity with him, right? Like all those things. And so, again, we're holding this together here going, okay, build a real relationship. And it's in a transient environment. It's different people, different times, It's not, I work in the same cubicle for 20 years with the person, because that has a different value and that has a different way of getting played out. Mm-hmm. And then on the same hand saying, and at certain times, I just need to go for the jugular. And God's going to tell me when to do that, and you will definitely know when that happens. You will feel it. The Holy Spirit will. I'm telling you, you will know when that happens. And that's what fueled Tom writing. And that's what fueled Tom writing this book. Yeah, is because he felt that knocking on his heart. A guy asked him. The guy basically asked him, like, how do I become a follower of Jesus? Yeah, they were on a lunchtime thing. He said, can we talk about this later? And the guy said, oh, yeah, of course. 20 minutes turned into the whole day. They couldn't get together that day. And that night, that dude died of a heart attack. Yeah. And for the next 4 or 5 days that Tom talked about, he went through a lot of anguish because, that jugular conversation was sitting there and he didn't have it. Yeah. And we don't know, the guy could have been a believer. Like, there's, but Tom didn't know. Right. Right after that. So the guy ends up writing a book that I think is going to be very helpful for a lot of people. Yeah, and that's that door cracking open that I was talking about. You get that opportunity, don't let it pass. Yep. And one of the things I was telling Corey was, now I'm to that point where it's like that last scene in Schindler's List where Liam Neeson is starting to realize, I could have done more, right? Here, take these cufflinks. This could have given you 10 more lives. Take this pin, right? And he's starting to have that dawning moment of he could have done more. Now I look back at how much time I wasted on all these job sites just trying to maintain a job, trying to get in. Hey, you just gotta be nice to this foreman, maybe you won't make the list, right? And
I could have, all those times that these guys were hurting and going through stuff, I wasn't there for them because I was just trying to get through it. So now it's not about getting through it. We're going to get through it. He's our Savior. He's our fulfills our every need. And now it's just like, just tell me what I can do for you now, Lord. You know, just what can I do? You know, I'm your servant. And just look for those opportunities to meet up with people. It will happen.
Again, thanks for stopping by and listening to that. I'm glad I heard that on the YouTube. First of all, I'm going to ask that you smash our subscribe button, right? Because that's how the young kids say it. Give us a thumbs up emoticon or whatever it is that Mark Zuckerberg needs you to do today. And then also, if we're available on the different podcast platforms for you, we'll be able to listen to that. And especially to you men who are listening, I know there's a lot of women who watch this, so welcome, ladies. But also for you guys, we really hope that what you heard today would be something that say, I'm glad I heard that. And I know just talking to so many men over the years, to have a perspective change at their work, to see it as a mission field in this very natural way, I really think this will be a great encouragement for a lot of people. Jake, thank you for telling me about the Marketplace Missionaries. Where Will Your Coworkers Spend Eternity by Tom Darby. And thank you for hounding me to have this conversation, because once I read this book, I go, oh, that's why this has been so life-changing. And thanks for being transparent with us.
I appreciate it, and thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.